Howdy, 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 and welcome to Thriving in the Transition, the podcast, episode 11. Yes, you know the spiel, here it comes. I'm truly humbled to be able to bring this podcast to you and to be part of your life. Yes, I say it every week, that's why I called it a spiel, but that's only because I mean it and because it's true. Your feedback, encouragement, and connection make it all worthwhile. Doing this and connecting with you is truly, truly amazing and inspirational for me. It's one of those things that I look forward to every week. It absolutely keeps me going in this time of shelter in place, social distancing, and COVID-19. So, yay me, yay you, and yay us. As we continue to grow and broaden our audience, go ahead and give us that 5-star rating. Follow us, subscribe, add positive comments. Keep the negative comments to yourself. No, whatever the comments are, share them with us. Like us, give us a thumbs up. Ultimately, what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say, what I'm consistent with every week, you should connect with us. You should engage with us. Right now, this podcast is up and available on Anchor FM, Apple Podcast, Breaker, Castbox, Google Podcast, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Spotify. Simply search for us wherever you listen to great podcasts. We strive to be among that great list of podcasts that you listen to, rely upon, and ultimately find useful. Why am I doing this? It got real quick, right? Why am I doing this? It really is a great question, and I refuse to answer based upon my God-given constitutional rights and the glorious Fifth Amendment. Wait, that's not the one we're all up in arms about this week, is it? Maybe it's the Second Amendment. I don't have a gun. Crap. Where's my do-it-yourself, at-home constitutional law degree that everyone seems to have in times like this? Oh well, I'll continue. The truth is simply this. I want to practice what I preach. I absolutely believe that part of my purpose in this life is to connect with others and to bring people together. I want to highlight and exemplify the fact that we've got more in common than we do in difference. Yes, the differences are much easier to identify, but discovering and appreciating the commonalities, that's so much more fun. That's so much more special. That's so much more meaningful. And that's what I want to do. I want to add meaning to your lives and anyone that hears my voice, that sees me speak, that takes a class from me, whatever the case may be. So yeah, that's partly why I'm doing it. The other part of why I do this, or the rest of the story, I simply want to shine a light on those slightly enigmatic, charismatic, and inspirational people among us. Because sometimes they go overlooked. They can be ignored. I want to share their stories about thriving in the transition and in times of transition, right? I want to share their stories about thriving in and during times of transition. The theory being that hearing other people succeed will give anyone that may be struggling with motivation or encouragement that impetus to continue to thrive in their own respective transitions. And today, ladies and gentlemen, today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to a very near and dear friend of mine, Lynn Watkins-Asiyanbi. I even remember how we met. It was during an icebreaker at an engineering group gathering at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I happened to be sitting next to her, and we were paired up for an icebreaker. And this icebreaker was to introduce someone in the group to the rest of the group. So I had to introduce her, she had to introduce me. It stands out because she nearly choked when we got to that part, where you're from, and I said, Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Her response was, Cape Joe who? To this day, it is still absolutely amazing. Here's the thing. When I introduced her, it was in that moment that you realize you're not the smartest person in the room. Anyone else ever have that experience? I'm asking for a friend. Even then, my initial thoughts were, how is she doing all of this? How is she capable of putting all this stuff together? I thought I was good. In fact, I knew I was good. In that moment, I'm like, boy, I'm a slacker. I clearly need to step up my game. Guess what? That's still the case, and maybe more so. All right, let's get into this conversation on time versus commitment and Lynn's story right after this little break. Another special thank you to Lynn Watkins-Asiyanbi for sharing her story and tips around time versus commitment. You have but to look at the world right now and see how this is impacting everyone. I mean, time versus transition, especially during this period of a global transition, aka the pandemic known as COVID-19. But here's the thing. It's not about everyone else. It's about you and your unique transition. Maybe, like Lynn, this is a time to pause a little bit, to reflect and catch your breath. Perhaps you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. The demands on your time have actually increased, either due to work and what you do. Maybe you're a frontline worker, an essential worker, a first responder, or maybe you now have to care for your family members. Whatever the case, it's up to you. That's why it's your transition. But the commonality is this. You need to carefully weigh how and where you spend your time versus what you're truly committed to. If you don't, you might be investing your time somewhere that doesn't matter or that doesn't get you closer to what you want. You see what I did there? I said investing time versus spending time, because that really is the difference. As Lynn so eloquently said, it's not about the amount of time, the number of hours in a day. It's about what you do with that time. A key part of thriving in the transition is absolutely focusing on commitments, those things that matter to you. That's how it appears that people could be superhuman or don't sleep or have somehow rewritten the rules of quantum physics. It looks on the outside like they're doing all this really great stuff, when the reality is they're just focusing on commitments. To drive this home, I'm going to share a personal story. I was in the middle of my coach training program. We just finished this segment on relationships to time, right? And the power of commitment. So it should have been front of mind. But all that was put aside when I was faced with my own day, right? And it was a day where it seemed like I had these monumental responsibilities. I'm talking about one of those days where you would need 4 of you to get through the task list for that day. I was looking at something like this. There was a commute downtown, which was about an hour. I knew once I got to the office, there were multiple phone calls, meetings, and project work. At least another 4 hours. I had made this commitment to a colleague to help with a leadership conference that she was producing downtown. I didn't even know what that time commitment was, but I knew I'd made the commitment to a friend. Then there was the commitment back. Again, if you listened to me a few sentences ago, that would be an hour. I had this commitment to church, which would have been about an hour. I had to take some things to be donated or to be organized. Regardless, I had to get back home, get the stuff, organize it, put it in my car, take it to church. At least an hour. Oh, I have kids. I had to pick up the kids from school, 2 locations, at least another hour, then make dinner. And yes, my middle child at the time, and he's still in Taekwondo, but he had a Taekwondo lesson that night. And just doing the quick math, we're already at 10 to 12 hours. So I immediately did what most of us do. Well, I guess Liam's not going to go to Taekwondo, and that stuff won't go to church. If we're lucky, that's all that's going to be cut out. That friend may not get my assistance at the leadership conference. So mentally, I just cut off those things that I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to get to right off the bat, right? I hadn't even gotten on the train at this point, but I already had decided those things were not going to make the cut for the day. Then I remembered that coach training. I stopped myself and looked at my commitments, those things that really mattered. What did I verbally promise? What did I commit to? I made commitments to help my colleague. That mattered. That's a relationship thing. That's an integrity thing. That's something that I said I would do, yet I hoped I wouldn't have to. Then I made this commitment to take my child to Taekwondo. We invested money. He was doing Taekwondo because I was doing Taekwondo. So it was really a potential monumental make or break father-son relationship thing. Yes, it's just one lesson, and no, it wasn't that grand, but that's the way it felt. That was the weight of that commitment. And of course, I committed to drop this stuff off at church, right? That's where my family got its spiritual well-being from, that church community. But yet, those were the two very things that I said weren't going to happen right off the bat. After reevaluating, I had to do those things. I made commitments. So the best I was able to do was, well, let me try and see. Let me see where the day goes. Who knows? It might all work out. But secretly, not so secretly, in the back of my mind, I knew that my youngest and the church thing were going to be missed out that day. So this is what actually happened. I got on the train, went downtown. I get to the office. I'm doing my stuff. So we're a couple hours into it. I'm being incredibly efficient and productive with my day. But there's still this commitment I made to the colleague to help out. So I call her. Hey, you don't still need me for this thing, do ya? Yes, Will. Yes, I do. When can you get here? All right. So I leave the office and go to it was the Blackstone Hotel, downtown Chicago, Michigan Avenue. So I go, first thing I do, how long are you going to need me? I don't know, maybe a couple hours. Oh, that's the last thing I wanted to hear. I was hoping it was an hour or less. Here's the thing. At that point, I suspended any negative thoughts that I had. I didn't worry about time. I decided to be in the present. I was asked to help out at this leadership conference for a reason. Coincidentally, it was filled with people that I knew that I had great relationships with. The session was incredibly impactful, not only to me and them. I was able to be myself. When I started to be myself, I didn't think about time, like not at all. So 2 hours had passed. We finished the exercises and I was helping out and facilitating exercises and all this stuff. We were done and my colleague's like, Will, oh my God, that was amazing. Thank you so much. We're good. If you've got other things to do, feel free to do it, but you can stay if you want to. So of course I'm like, no. I felt like one of those cartoons where it was like, pew, and all you saw was a dust of my outline and I was out the door. Looked at my watch and I'm like, yeah, that was 2 hours, but I can still make this work. So went straight from the hotel to the train to the car, not looking at the watch, just focusing on the commitments. And you get where this story is going, so I'm not going to belabor the point. Bottom line, got home, got the stuff for church, took it to church, box checked. Went back home, reorganized, went and got the kids from 2 separate schools, mind you, box checked. Got home, got dinner going, started, maybe even finished. I'm not even sure. It literally was a blur. Got my middle son to Taekwondo class, got him back home, box checked, sat down, and literally it all came out. It felt amazing. And right on cue, my wife comes over, sits next to me, and gives that question. How was your day? Let me tell you, it was amazing, and I did the thing and the stuff, and I went downtown, and I didn't think I had the time to do it, but I did, and I went over to the Blackstone Hotel and did the things and stuff, and came back and then went to the church and the thing, and the pastor says hi, and got over there and did the stuff. I felt amazing. It really was like being a superhero for that day. And I think what really drove it home was knowing that I was about to cut things off of that list versus following through on my commitments. That's the point. That's what I wanted to share. That's the power of time versus commitment. Everything got done, but most importantly, I kept my commitments. I was true to myself. I didn't give up, which is exactly how I started the day. I started the day in a position to give up, right? I was ready to concede. You with me? There's power here. Now, let's get back to the episode. There were so many great points and moments in that conversation with Lynn. I'm going to do my best to summarize some of those points, at least the things that stood out to me. Hopefully these same things stood out to you, but maybe even better if different things stood out to you. First, passion leads to opportunity. As Lynn illustrated, early on in her career, she sought opportunity. But because she did later in her career, the opportunity sought her. But what if you don't know what your passion is? Fulfill your passions through lived experience. What are those things that are present for you? What are those things that have value for you? What are those things that have meaning? In Lynn's case, two of the examples, one was her mom that was suffering from Alzheimer's. She decided no one needed to go through that suffering again, so there was the Alzheimer's Association. Then there was her experience with the Girl Scouts, right? She was passionate about making sure there's equity in education, equity in experience, and she started a Girl Scout troop. Again, just mind blown thinking about that. But that's the takeaway. Passion leads to opportunity, right? And you can fulfill that passion through lived experiences. Next, it's what I just talked about. You have to weigh time versus commitment. It's not just about spending time. It's not about what's scheduled. It's about the spaces, because that's where you have the time for your commitments. Think about what brings you joy. Think about what's important to you. Make the best of your time and set limits for yourself, right? If you are available 24/7 to your company, to anything, that takes away from what's important to you. It's hard to make those commitments. Set limits, as Lynn did. Hey, when I'm in the car, that's time with my kids. I'm not doing phone calls there. If you need that time slot, let's look at the next day. But that time is reserved for them. It's a powerful limit. My work day is going to be 9 to 4, maybe 5 if it's important. Set those limits. Then you have time for those commitments. Then you can be the parent that you want to be. You can be the spouse that you want to be. You can be the partner that you want to be. You can be the person that you want to be. Typically, we think of setting limits as a very negative thing. It limits us. People despise anything with limits. Hence my reference at the beginning of the show to constitutional law degree and rights and freedoms. You have to stay at home for the safety of everybody. I'm an American citizen. I can go out and get sick and get other people sick if I want to. It doesn't make sense. But it does, because people hate limits. Any limit that's imposed, people are going to push against. That's all we're seeing, right? And yes, I make jest of the situation. It's not funny, but it's real. And we as people are real and have to acknowledge that. So make the best of your time and set limits for yourself. Lynn made this very, very subtle point. Again, people that tend to do a lot, that have a lot of success, that tend to thrive in the transition, outside looking in, it seems like it's all good. They've got it all under control. They don't have a care in the world. They're on easy street. They've got it made. Not the case. Take it from me personally. I have my days. I have my moments. I have my weeks where I'm not okay. And guess what? In Lynn's own words, it's okay not to be okay. We all need support. In this case of this episode, Lynn got her support from her husband, right? The way they met each other, the way they balance, their yin and yang. It's beautiful, but everybody needs support. If right now you're thinking, well, I don't, you need support more than anyone else. Or if you think, well, I don't have it, create the community. Like the past 4 or 5 episodes, I've talked about creating this community for support. It's okay not to be okay. You can't be what you can't see. I've said this a couple times. I've put things out on social media, memes or whatever with this point. You have to understand. You have to be able to see what it is. In the case of Lynn's Girl Scout troop, you need to get beyond your neighborhood. And I love the way she's so eloquent, just casually throughout. If you need to make it to all 77 neighborhoods in Chicago. Was anyone else thinking, I didn't know there were 77 neighborhoods in Chicago? Whatever the number is, I think she said 77. But whatever the number is, think about how powerful that is. And that's just a neighborhood. What if you've been missing? What you don't know. If you've never been there, you can't possibly understand what the best restaurants are, where the best places to live are, whatever. Now let's get that really personal. If you're trying to develop your career, if you're trying to broaden your horizons, you can't be what you can't see. So you need that exposure, you need that background, you need that backdrop of what is, so you can decide if that's for you or not. You can't be what you can't see. And the last one, you have to have flexibility in your goals. It's not an all or nothing. All or nothing propositions really only end in one way: failure. Because very few people get all that they want. And with that set up, as soon as you don't get it all, you're a failure. You could have done more. I knew if I should have done this. Those twin robbers that we talked about, regret and fear come into place. So you have to have flexibility in your goals. You heard it with Tammy Parrish. Maybe it's getting closer to the goal, not necessarily there. Maybe it's a lateral move with a bit of forward momentum. Maybe you've got this ideal position, role, place that you want to be in life. Go for it. What's the old saying? If you shoot for the stars, you're sure to hit the moon. It's fine if you don't hit it. Just don't stop. That's where the issue comes in, right? That's where safety is violated. That's how you know that safety is violated. The lack of forward momentum. So don't let it stop you. If you don't hit your goal, oh well. Make a new goal. Adjust. But keep moving forward. So that's fine. You just need that flexibility in goals. So what I just say, passion leads to opportunity, right? You have to weigh time versus commitment. Make the best of your time and set limits for yourself. It's okay not to be okay. You can't be what you can't see, and have flexibility in your goals. I know this can be a lot to take in, especially when we start talking about something as polarizing as time. What I mean by that is we all come to the table with a specific context, a predetermined belief around time and what it's based in. And that context is based on our backgrounds, our experiences, our observations in life. And it's really hard to change that predetermined belief on any topic. Some of us are hardwired to believe that there is never enough time. Time is the enemy. It's that reason that time is the root for why you can never do what it is you really want to do. I can't get my degree, there's not enough time. I can't be a volunteer, I don't have the time. I simply can't focus on self-care and take care of the family and do my job well. There isn't the time. I'll do it when things slow down. Any of those things sound familiar to you? Then there are those people that are hardwired to believe that you only need to follow your passions and commitments. And both groups don't make sense to each other, right? I'm going to throw that out there right now. If you're in the time rules all, it won't let me do anything, you don't understand these passion and commitment people. Passion and commitment people don't understand the time is the enemy people. I'm here to tell you, we've got more in common than we do in difference. There is a middle ground here, right? So those passion and commitment people, they don't think about it. They just do it, right? Oh, I just focused on my goals and things happen, right? Oversimplification, right? That's where that humility thing comes in. Oh, somehow I just find time for everything. I just take things one at a time, or I live my life one day at a time. You hear the difference between those two groups? No matter what your relationship to time is, I promise you, if you focus on your commitments and not time, you will be in a better place. You will position yourself to thrive in the transition. All right, that brings us to the end of another Thriving in the Transition episode. Episode 11! Thank you for joining. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to be myself. If you're getting something from this podcast, please give us a rating of 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast. Subscribe and add us to that list of other great podcasts that you listen to, because I know you're listening to them, right? I see the numbers every week. You're listening to other podcasts. Listen to ours too. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook at Logic Consulting, L-O-G-I-Q Consultant. Also follow me on Instagram at Logic Coach, LOGIQ_coach. You know what? Also follow me on Spotify at GQ Down, GQDOWN. And not just for the podcast, but follow me on the regular part of Spotify with the music. Discover the playlist. Discover the songs that helped me thrive in the transition. Reach out on LinkedIn at DJ Willrock, DJWILLROCK. Don't forget to follow the YouTube channel as well, Thriving in the Transition. And yeah, there's that website too, www.thrivinginthetransition.com. Now, you can get all of our episodes right from that website. We added a podcast link to the menu for your convenience. Now you don't have to go to multiple websites to get caught up. Just go to my website, and while you're there, take a look around and see how else we can connect. Lastly, if you're interested in supporting this podcast and helping us grow, and I hope you are, send me an email, tweet, IM, slide in the DMs, give me a phone call, whatever. You'll find a sponsorship button on my homepage on Anchor FM, www.anchor.fm/TITT for Thriving in the Transition. Again, look for the support button. Most importantly, don't keep this a secret. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. In fact, tell the random people in the line at Walmart while you practice social distancing, wearing a mandated face mask. Tell all those people that you've been listening to me and the Thriving in the Transition, the podcast. Until the next episode, folks, cheers. Have a great day. Boom. That's how we do it.